Greetings, friends. Welcome back to the Film Alchemist podcast. This month, sponsored by our friends, Manscaped. Alex, are you trim and clean? Are you as trim and clean as you should be?
I am pretty much where I was when I was 13 and growing my pubis for the first time.
You're like 18 at college. You're like, what's that? Your first pube gets in. You're like, what is that? What's happening? No, I got to say, Alex, this month we've been doing Beefcake. The pod brings the beef for Thanksgiving.
Yep.
We've been watching a lot of muscly men who take care of their manscaping growth. I think what I've learned in this quarantine is that a lot of our fellow brothers out there, the other men folk, it's been battered into our brains that we don't need to pamper and take care of ourselves.
Untrue.
If 2020's taught us anything, you got to take care of these little health things, right? Being trim, being aerodynamic so you can dodge this air that's full of COVID and fake news and neighbors. You got to be agile, right? If you want to do a Dalton kick,
True.
You can't be rocking a full bush. It's not acceptable.
No, not at all. No. You can't be rocking those scrotum pressing jeans against your legs if you're rocking a full bush. It's impossible. But that's like the beauty of Manscaped. The Lawnmower 3.0 is a wonderfully, beautifully designed piece of equipment. You're done. Like it takes no time at all. It's absolutely wonderful. Again, the pampering, like the actual like need to focus on yourself for that kind of stuff, much more valuable than I expected it to be, especially this year. Yeah, and I even had a friend who was so foolish. He's like, "Well, I'm married. I don't need to do that anymore." And I'm like, "Well, guess what? Sure. You're gonna have to find another wife because she's sick of looking at your little hobbit down there." He's like, "No, it needs this trim." It's like, well, yeah, that's why. If you're not trimming yourself, someone is not happy with you. That's no way to live. It's no way to live. Be cool. Learn to trim. Take care of yourself, guys. The important thing is also using our code at manscaped.com. You go to manscaped.com, you pick out what you want, you use our code FILM, F-I-L-M. You get 20% off your first purchase plus free shipping. It's actually a pretty sweet deal.
Yes, and might I add, the underwear are exceptionally good. The Manscaped
really
underwear are game-changing underwear that I will
really
be adding
good.
more to my cart. Just neither here. Let me tell you guys a horror story, right?
2 more. I actually already bought 2 more pairs of Manscaped underwear.
Exactly
we got
right.
the freebies and I bought more.
They're that good. Let me tell you a horror story just to sell this one more time. So I was using one of my old trimmers, right? It was a sad trimmer. The kids were busy. I was like, I'll go handle this. So I was trying to nick myself up with my wife's like $2 pink flamingo handled leg razor. Oof. I got the old power leg up, the power stance right. I look like Brad Wesley trying to buy a local business. Just up, going at myself with my wife's razor, right? I hear a sound in the other room. Ah! My kids have done something horrible, right? So in a fluid motion, I run out to make sure my kids are okay. I forget that I'm shaving my balls and have no clothes on. I go, what the hell's going on? The kids have knocked something off, like a TV or something. It's a shit show, but they both look at me. Their eyes go huge. They both start crying. My son throws up. And I was like, what on earth is happening? Come to find out, I forgot to put my lovely fitting Manscaped underwear back on. So I ran out there, and I had nicked myself bad, because I wasn't using the lawnmower's patented protection plan. So I nicked myself bad, so my leg was just covered in blood from my balls. So my kids are just looking at my kind of shaved, naked, bleeding body. The kid threw up. The dog ran over and ate it. So I threw up a little bit on my own naked stomach. And I was just like, if only I could find help in this cruel world. Lo and behold, Manscaped, right around the corner. It was fortuitous. So my kid is scarred. I'll have to pay for a lot of therapy down the road. But at least I'll be saving money on those disgusting ball shampoos.
By going to manscaped.com, using our code FILM, F-I-L-M, getting 20% off and free shipping. Go do it, guys. Treat yourself, especially your friends going into, your little Daltons going into the new year.
That's right. You don't want yourself looking like a throat rip down there, guys. Take care of you. No. Take care of your significant other. Save your children the trauma like I did not do. Manscaped.com, code FILM. Buy it! Woo. guys, if you're here joining us, we hope you're enjoying yourselves as always. We have to ask you for some help real quick up top. Please take a second and leave a rating and review wherever you find the podcast, especially if that happens to be Apple Podcast app. Give us a quick 5-star, a couple words about why you enjoy the show. That we appreciate that so much. Thank you so much for those of you who have been doing it. It means the world to us. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, now called Film Alchemist. We're working on some new content over there, especially in this new year. We're going to try to really be good about building a YouTube presence. You can also watch the video versions of these audio podcasts over there. So get on over there and do that. Find us on all the social media you're on. We love Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the stuff you're on. That's a great way to reach out to us. You can also email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you guys. This is a great way to get a hold of us and let us know what movies you want us to talk about, because that's what we're here to do, man. Also, last chance. This is the last week. You'll be hearing this early in the week, so you have time. We are still filling slots for our December stocking stuffers. We've got more than we can cover, but I think we got some softies. Some people went a little off the rails with their picks. So if you have a dynamite movie that you want to hear us talk about, there's still a really good chance we may be able to get that in this December as the pod stuffs your stocking. So that's enough business for now, but get those in any of the ways you want to reach us, socials or filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. All right, that's it. The pod, it's approaching Thanksgiving. The pod decided we're bringing the beef. Enough of this wimpy-ass elitist turkey. This turkey that's got to have stuffing in it just so it can have the guts to show up to your table. Enough of that. We're bringing beef, right? So we've gone through the beefiest today. Easily my favorite of the beefcake oeuvre that we've discussed. Although serving us the most petitest and leanest of the beef cuts. A fine movie called Roadhouse. Alex, first thoughts on Roadhouse?
I mean, it is markedly the most important movie of any young man's life.
I was actually a bouncer in college, and I really cannot understate the value. Like, I remember in college I had friends that were like, have you seen the movie Waiting? This is what it's like, right? Or there were people that like saw Office Space as that movie. When I was a bouncer, it was like one of those weird fraternity spanking, jerking off rituals. Where it's like, you know you're going to drink to the edge of death, and if you survive as you're recovering, you'll watch Roadhouse, and then you'll be amongst the bouncing brethren. So this movie is wildly important to me, and I adore it so much.
There's nothing about this movie that can be understated as being hugely important to really any young man's development. Like, there's a lot of great life lessons in this movie. Everything that you learn from the movie Roadhouse generally can be applied to life.
What I love is that it has great life lessons, and then about halfway through the movie, it's like, let's forsake all that and blow up the whole town.
Well, I mean, the thing that I like the most is the most important life lesson that's ever been extolled in a movie is in this film, which is, listen, if you can't beat them, rip their fucking throat out. There you go.
Oh,
kidding. Not a life lesson.
I mean, is it? You only got two choices, mijo. Either you die or you rip his fucking throat out. No. There is.
We'll get to Wade Garrett, my friend.
What I love about this movie so much is it steers directly into one of the weirdest things about the action genre, is all of these men watch these movies, and we all kind of fantasize about being an Arnold or a Stallone. But it's like, I watched the movie Cliffhanger as like a preteen, and you're like, yeah, I'll never be hanging off the side of a mountain like that. That's just, nope, that's not happening, right? Like,
Arnold.
You can just see there's like,
Stallone.
Yeah, like the Predator, he would have chewed me up. Like, I'm not going to be able to roll in the mud and create traps. Like, that's not going to work. But there is something, and I think it's one of the funny motifs of the movie, is the way they designed Dalton is so absolutely fucking brilliant in this movie.
It's amazing.
Is that there is this, and it's the funny thing too, because I was one of the guys, like, I'm a fairly big guy, I guess, but not huge. So, like, as a bouncer, I used to have that. I knew I was the guy that every person in the bar is like, I think I could kick his fucking ass. And you're just like, God damn it. Like, we had bouncers that were just way bigger and way more muscly, and you're like, people see them and just know, like, I don't even want to do that, even if you could beat them. But me, they would look at me and just, it's I thought you'd be bigger. Right?
Right. I mean, this movie, I can tell you, there's not a time in my life where I don't so desperately want to be Sam Elliott's Wade Garrett in this movie. But I know in reality I'm more like that huge mulleted fat guy who's also a bouncer who just clearly prays and worships at the altar of Dalton. The Dalter.
Well, first off, the fat mulleted guy, Dalton is his, Mona Lisa for sure.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
He's like I'm going to start a keto diet, I'm going to listen to Joe Rogan Pod and buy some kettlebells, and I'll be Dalton in no time.
Yes, sure. That's I think one of the funny things, the sequel.
So let's talk about this right up front, right? This movie lives, breathes, and dies purely on the strength of Patrick Swayze. What I love about Patrick Swayze, right, is that he is this different... He felt like one of the last macho men from a bygone era, right? He felt like he was more of a 70s star in the 80s. So as these guys were getting bigger and more jacked, Swayze came in who has this background in dancing, a little ballet, he's very fucking lean. He's not a particularly big guy. Even though he has a giant fucking head and giant hair, right? Like his head and hair ratio is fucking massive to his body. But he's the guy that all of our moms would get whapped to, right? Instead of our dads.
Oh, for sure.
And every guy was like, that's something I think I could be or hang out with. He's still chain smoking.
Right.
But he always felt better and above, but still attainable. And there is something about him, right? And this is the role that Swayze really does the masterful, just kind of the silent man in the corner we all wish we could be instead of desperately yapping and trying to make ourselves what we want to be.
Totally.
There is just a pure fucking alpha power to him in this movie that is unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with the, muscle. He's not, I guess it could. But, for me, Swayze is the ultimate masculinity. Of this month of beef we've done, he is the most masculine in Roadhouse. There's no one, Stallone on his most Cobra-ish day wishes he had the masculinity, the power, the fortitude that Dalton lives with on a regular basis.
Okay, but this is what I'm saying, because I agree with you, right? I think there's something about needing the giant bulging muscles that just speaks to some kind of inner weakness.
What I was getting at was that because he's the cooler. That's what it is. You can be a Cobra and quiet and fucking blow people away with your fucking sweet guns, or you can quietly sit in the corner and sip coffee, and that is what makes someone mad. That's what, to me, that's the product of masculinity right there. He's just, hey, what do you have to drink? Coffee. Wow. That's the coolest order anyone's ever made in a bar.
Well, it's not even that. It's the fact that we see him actually get roughed up. He's not the big... this is the thing. Swayze in this movie and Connery and Zardoz, which we started the month with, there is something just unbelievably masculine and powerful about them without the, oh yeah, I can flip a fucking phone booth over my shoulders at will, right? I could you would believe if I threw a helicopter 5 feet into the ground and survived the explosion and shrapnel, right? They don't have that. The way that the camera just sits on Swayze, and it's one of those things you hear, right? I remember I just watched this documentary with William Friedkin, right? He was talking about making The Exorcist. Fascinating stuff. Leap of Faith on Shudder. And he talked about, he's like, the greatest landscape in movie history was just a close-up of Steve McQueen's face, right? What he could do and accomplish. And as I was watching Roadhouse today, I was like, fuck, man, that's how I felt with Swayze. Just him looking with just a smirk. Just that every woman in this bar is going to go home and dream of me as her, pot-bellied, balding husband is trying to mount up, right? Smelling of cigs and beer. I mean, he smells like cigs, too. And all the guys are like, yeah, I could probably jog for a week and I'd be cooler than him. Even though they can't, for sure, right? But there's something just... It's one of those things you just can't teach. You can't get that in the gym. You can't get it anywhere. Swayze just looks, right? There's even one of the scenes I noted that I fucking love is when he's doing the Tai Chi flow. He's doing his morning karate flow in his fucking white pants and Napoleon Dynamite boots. and the farmer comes out and actually grabs his hat, and they come back to like a pearl clutching moment from the farmer, and I was like, even this old farmer wants to fuck Patrick Swayze. Like, that's how good this movie runs. If you roll the movie through and you're like, imagine this movie through the lens of every person wants to sack Patrick Swayze, it absolutely works still.
Oh, yes. Without question. I mean, like, every single person, even Ben Gazzara wants a piece, man. That's all there is to it.
For sure. For sure he does.
I mean, it's just a movie that sort of stands alone. And again, Patrick Swayze is this fascinating person. He's always a fascinating actor. Like, his choices are very specific. Like, because I was reading a lot about like how he came to this movie and what he did afterwards, because he did this right after Dirty Dancing, so they were like living high on the Swayze wave, the Swavey, and like apparently this is crazy. He had to hire separate bodyguards for himself because the women would literally swarm set. That scene where he's like, that pivotal scene in the movie where he's literally screaming across the little lake at Brad's house. Apparently, a group of women literally got on a raft and totally ruined the shot by like getting on a raft and like holding up signs like, "We love you, Patrick." Oh my God. Like, that's the level of mania that this man induces simply by sitting in Buddy's corner and just letting it happen, you know? I mean, it's something else, man. It's something else. It cannot be taught. It cannot be taught. It's a thing you do. And like, I think the movie he did after this is insane. The movie he did after this was Ghost.
Like, I mean, just like the 3 movie run, like, you are the lady king of all time.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely. He knew.
I love the idea of those ladies in a raft. It's like, we need a new life. We seek better lands. That land, your dick and face. Come on, Patrick. No, but this is the thing, though, too, is Patrick is a perfect actor for Dalton, right? Dalton is very much this kind of anti-80s action hero in a lot of ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has a nice car, but he buys a hoopty because he knows people's going to smash that, right? He can kick a lot of people's asses, but he wants to not do that, right? And like
he's
the opening scene I love,
a reluctant hero, which is the thing I think everyone likes the most about him.
Well, it makes him so much more interesting, right? Than like Arnold in Commando is just like, well, now I've got to kill you. I was told I need to do work on my Arnold accent, so
I thought it was perfect.
I'm not there.
You know,
oh!
Whoever told you that is wrong.
Oh! No, I'm just kidding. Give me back my girlfriend. I mean, daughter. No. Anyways, I'll work on it. It'll get better next time. But the opening with Swayze, right, is this guy's like, don't I want a piece of you? I think I could fucking take you. Like, he's been thinking about this a while. And as a bouncer, I can tell you that is a real thing, is that regulars to a bar size up bouncers, and they're like, I can kick that fucking guy's ass. Like, they all think that. They all want to do that, right? And him, like, all right, outside. He goes outside, and he just rolls his eyes and walks back in. He denies us the fighting, right? What we pay to see these movies for. And it fucking works unbelievably.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. It's the perfect cock tease. Literally the entire movie until he decides to like throw down as a huge cock tease. He's constantly denying us the thing that makes these movies like cash grabs, so to speak. That's what kind of is amazing about Roadhouse, is it almost, and this movie like got nominated for a ton of Razzies. People thought it was terrible. Also,
that's unbelievable.
I don't know if you know this, the director Rowdy Harrington is a huge part of the film Alchemist history. He was the electrician for Humanoids of the Deep, our favorite movie collectively. And then he was also Best Boy Electric for Nightmare on Elm Street, which was during our first 30 movies in 30 days run. Like,
what a career.
It's like, and this was like his first or second directing job, and this is the movie he chose to do. Like, this is something else, man. This is a guy who understands something that no one else is understanding about what it is that makes Patrick Swayze, Sam Elliott, and really anybody in this movie who exudes any form of confidence fascinating.
Well, this is the thing, right? So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but I would just look at the opening like 3 minutes, right? It tells you everything about this man, Dalton. It tells you everything this movie's going to be, and it does it with kind of a deft touch, right? So he started on fast red muscle car, or like, what do they call those fancy cars? I don't know. Sports cars, whatever the fuck. I don't know any car stuff, right?
Why don't we go with sports cars?
A beautiful girl in a yellow dress walks up, right? We're drooling on ourselves. She's the ideal clientele. She walks in. American Express Gold. $100 bills. Titties and drugs, right? Or titties and booze, right? Like everything you'd think, you're like, this is the kind of bar I need to be at. This man refuses to fight, right? Very Enter the Dragon. Where Bruce Lee, like, tricks that guy onto the fucking life raft boat. Like, meet me on that island. That's where we'll fight. He sets him adrift, and he's like, fuck you, I'm not fighting. I know I'm better than you. And then he just comes up, and Dalton just like, hey, you want me? It's all this fucking money, blah, blah, blah. I call the shots. And this guy's just like, yeah, okay. I mean, that 3 minutes is as deft and perfect an opening to a movie as you'll ever see. It does every single thing it needs to do in a very efficient manner. And that is what this movie really plays at. And I think Swayze's really good at, right? Another thing I was reminded of watching this movie is this, the way Dalton and Garrett are built up as these mythic figures, right? Very much like in Bo Jackson and Dr. J in times before TV deals. Where, like, you look back statistically and you're like, they weren't that great, right? But Bo Jackson, people just like, he plays 2 sports. I've never heard a bat crack like that. And then he's on TV in an all-star game running up the wall. And people are like, that must be what it's like every fucking day. That guy got a cartoon with Michael Jordan based on, like, folk tales, right? And that's what Dalton is, right? He shows up to the bar, and you see this. We show up to the Double Deuce, which is just an all-time shitter bar, right?
Might be one of my favorite sets from any movie ever.
Oh, it's awesome. And the amount of prop tables they destroyed, very WWE level. But I like, because the blind guitarist describes it, he's like, it's the kind of place you sweep the eyeballs up at the end of the night. Or I think it was maybe the owner of the bar set.
I thought it was the owner.
It's a great line, right?
Oh no, I thought it was Keith David. No, maybe Keith David doesn't.
No, Keith David makes the smallest little cameo in the middle. He's just the bartender Ernie.
Yeah.
When he orders more booze, like, wow, like you had Keith David in this fucking macho fest and you couldn't get him in there? That sucks. But anyway, shouts out to Keith David. But I love the notion of this just absolute shitter bar, right? And what's cool is because you just walk in and it's just brawls. And just awesome little character work, right? Like the guy who's like, you want to kiss my wife's tits? $10 each. The guy's like, oh yeah. And he's like, well, joke's on you, I ain't got $20. Fucking bedlam, right? Like, this whole fucking bar is exploding in brawls. But you see these hard people that work in this hard environment. What do they all do? You see that guy at the end of the bar? That's fucking Dalton, man. And so it plays on this fucking American tall tale, right? This great American man that we all wish we were. I thought some of the opening character work in this was phenomenal.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's what makes this movie so fascinating and so entertaining in general is just you get to see the before times, like before Dalton shows up. Pre-Dalton, this is exactly what the bar was like every single night. And that's hilarious because you're like, oh my God, who would ever want to go into that bar and deal with that all the time? But also, I so want to be in that bar every fucking night. This
was the kind of one line of the movie I completely, well, there's a lot of lines I disagree with, but this one where he's like, no one wants to hang out in a slaughterhouse. And I was like, I'm going to disagree with you a hair, Dalton, because this was the bar, like, if we were, like, college guys, you're like, oh, yeah, it's Thursday. We're going to the Double Deuce. You never know what you see at the Double Deuce.
Absolutely. Like, that's the thing about, and I love that scene, by the way, where he, like, lays out the rules and says, like, nobody wants to hang out in a slaughterhouse. Like, untrue, but also, again, like, he has these great scenes, and the first one, obviously, this one's the next one for me that like sets the tone for who Dalton is in the movie. Is he throws down his like 3 rules,
right?
And that's like the thing that like it was, be nice, take it outside. Yeah. What was the third one?
Never underestimate your opponent.
Never underestimate your opponent.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of stuff. But like it's such a cool like that's the cool that you're like, oh man, I wish I was
be
that
nice.
Cool. Because you want to be able to like hold the room like that, and it is just like this awesome beat. But he effectively, he makes it a much more easily habitable bar, but kind of makes it a little bit less cool. Even though the blind musician's super happy, he doesn't have to like hang out behind a cage anymore.
Sure, but I like the idea of like, here's this guy in a fucking cage. It's so unsafe for them to play. right? One of my favorite small beats is when the owner walks in and it says for a nice fuck call, and he changed it to Buick. And I was like, it's such a brilliant screenwriting and moment, right? It's just like, this guy's so fucking down and out. He's like, it's such a lost cause. He's like, well, at least I'll make it a Buick instead of pussy. That'll really help, like the overall economic state of my bar. But it's like it's a great bit. It's a brilliant little bit, and this movie's loaded with those little bits, right?
Oh yeah.
One of the things you're struck by immediately, though, watching this is you're like, man, this town outside of what we see, right? Because what we see is fairly idyllic, right? We see a mansion, we see a farm, the inside of a hospital, a couple like little bars and restaurants, whatever. Yeah, you're like, this town must literally be like a Sodom and Gomorrah, because how many people are willing to literally murder and or get murdered to make minimum wage at a bar?
It's insane. Like, people are fiending for jobs in a bar. Like,
yeah.
It's interesting because what struck me this time, and I have never like thought this watching it, but so much of this beat feels borrowed from, so much of the like core concepts of like Dalton and Wade and the bar itself feel borrowed to that the Rock movie Walking Tall, which is based on a true story, but there's so much of what they tried to do in that movie that's borrowed from Roadhouse, and all of it doesn't work there just because like the nature of the movie is very different.
Yeah.
Here though, yeah, like you're just sitting there the whole time and you're thinking, what else goes on in this town? Like, Kelly Lynch is a doctor, and she's literally the only other. And then there's the guy who runs the dealership that gets fucking pulverized by a big rig, and you're like, I literally don't understand what's happening in this town. Like, I thought that I wrote in my notes this time, I was like, I don't think this town exists. I think it's like 5 different towns, and there's like horrible things happening in other towns.
It's okay. So the geography. Well, this is the thing, right? Like, it is kind of Walking Tall, but Walking Tall is more of a classic setup, right? This is one guy, Joe Don Baker was the original, right? And he's back from the military. They're fucking him up, and he's going in to destroy a business, right? That's a lot easier.
Right, yeah.
What is hard to swallow about this movie at times is like the entire political, economic, whatever the fuck, right? Existential threat to this town hinges. The linchpin of this town is the shittiest bar you've ever seen in your life. And I was just like, are there other bars in town? At one point, because one of the things they do, right, is you start seeing the bar get nice. There's no cage. Better lighting. People are wearing those 80s jackets with shoulder pads and shit, right? Mm-hmm. So you see the bar getting better. I'm like, are there just an extra 8,000 attractive young people in town, like, ready to come get hammered? What do you, like...
Well, that's my question. Did they start, like, really did they just start barring ugly people? They're like, you, not allowed in. You're hideous. You're not allowed here.
No shoulder pads. You look like you've never heard of Duran Duran. Next bar, scum. Now all of a sudden you've got this highfalutin bar in the corner. Yeah, it's the whole...
The Double Deuce basically is the first hipster bar ever caught on film.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But this is the weird thing about this, too, is... It's so strange because, like, these guys who are willing to die for the... Like, Terry Funk, right? The great legendary wrestler is, like, the first bouncer gets... I think his name's Morgan. Where he's like, You're a dead man when he gets his check. Man. And I was just like, one of the very next scenes they show is that Brad Wesley's just having fucking pussy parties galore at his house.
Yeah.
And I was like,
oh, yeah.
Why not just go make the same amount of money at the fucking Pussy Palace instead of, like, dealing with this bar? But what I like, they add a really cool thing. Is because this whole movie essentially is just Dalton fighting 80s action movies as an art form. Right?
Yes.
Because every
100%.
character in this movie is a classic 80s action character who's like, I just can't lose face. Right? So they're like, yeah, of course I'll die to be a fucking bouncer who's probably it's the 80s, $4 an hour, maybe getting tipped out. But since you're breaking everything in the bar, your tips are like, meh. People are ordering like a 70-cent Schlitz and giving you a nickel. So, like, who knows? But of course these guys can't lose because Morgan's whole life is I have to whip everyone's asses, right? And Brad Wesley even becomes that too, right? Because that's the other thing about the towns. You're like, there's a guy who's rich enough to just have a fucking helicopter fly him around this fucking
rich enough
village?
rich enough for there's a lot of things that Brad Wesley gets to do that like not even normal rich people can do. Like
Yeah.
not even Jeff Bezos would do. Be like, that's a little extreme. I don't think I can do that. Like this is like Brad Wesley has a house by the lake. That's fine. That's rich people thing.
Pretty normal.
A helicopter. Interesting.
Okay.
Is able to order a monster truck to drive through a car dealership, which is just like, you're like,
Well, he owns the monster truck, so to be fair.
well, he owns the monster truck. He doesn't own the dealership. That's what I'm saying. Like, the things he orders people to do are like,
well,
fuck
he
you money,
owns
rich
the
people.
town, right? And they betray
He
him.
owns the town, but like, see, they explain like the double dues. He doesn't own the bar. He owns the liquor that goes to the bar. So like, he always like skims off the top and does all that shit,
Yeah.
which is like one of my all-time, because that's also the entrance of Sam Elliott as Wade Garrett, which is like one of my favorite entrances in a movie, maybe ever. Walking out back, he's like, you guys seen a skinny little runt running around here? And he goes out back, and he's just getting his ass kicked. Goes, mijo?
Well, no, because the one guy's like, get out of here, dickless.
Get out of here.
He's like, you want to fight? He's like, well, I'm not showing you my dick. And then he just punches him right in the nuts.
Punches him in the balls. Which have not been freshly manscaped, you can tell.
Oh, yeah.
Boom.
No, we'll get to Wade Garrett. But what I like about this, too, is because there is this point where you're like, I think Brad Wesley's just really bad at business. Like, I think he just wants to die. Because he has everything he wants, but he can't have the doctor. He doesn't really have respect or toughness, right? Like, we see him beat up his own, like, wussy henchman who won't fight back.
Well, we got
There's a bit of this guy.
When we talk about it, we'll get to the house, which is amazing.
Yeah, well, we see him run Dalton off the road, right? Where he's, like, singing his song, and he's like, yeah, I'll fucking play chicken. If I die, so what? So there's this... But it's kind of a brilliant trap door to build into this movie of just this little tough kid from the south side of Chicago who, like, when he made it so good. We see his murder room. Like, he's killed all these fucking animals, probably, like, unfair advantages and giant guns while they're sleeping.
Yeah, he has a real good, like, Trump Jr. room. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, and then the moment his girlfriend dances a little bit on Dalton, we see her with the black eye the next scene, which just lets us know this guy's an enormous piece of shit. He's beating her up. So everything in Wesley's life is this false... Yeah. Again, it's him wanting to
Brad
be Dalton,
Wesley
but
is
can't
like...
be.
Brad Wesley for sure owns like 20 Jimmy Johns and definitely hunts animals like for like animals that shouldn't be hunted for sport.
Yeah. No, he's a scum. But
it's pretty...
It's a brilliant build-in with Dalton, though, right? Because Dalton's a guy who's not buying in. He doesn't want it, but all of these guys can't let him walk away. Because every one of these guys, what little bit of value they have is built in the fact that they will smash a guy like Dalton.
These guys is built into their masculinity and the ability to prove themselves versus Dalton, of all people. Yeah. And again, like, that's another, like you said it best earlier, which is just... It's the guy you always want to be. Like, you want to be the quiet guy who sits in the corner and just lets people, like, run their mouth. We're all those assholes who just run our mouths. Like, I don't know anyone who's cool enough to just sit in the corner and not say something.
Well, the next time you go out with your friends at a bar, make note of the things they tell you that they're really good at, or something they did really well, or some really brilliant insight they've been saving up to drop on you. We're all those people. We're all crafting our narratives. Very few of us get to be Dalton where that shit's just done for. I would argue there are moments for sure where Dalton plays it up a little bit, though, right? Like the carrying his own medical file around.
Come on, bro. That's just bullshit posturing. Come on.
I don't need anesthetics. Pain don't hurt. Pain don't hurt. Pain
Why
don't hurt.
Why do you carry your medical files around? Saves time. It actually doesn't. I don't think she needed to know all your things. Scene. Are you allergic to aspirin? Are you allergic to anything else? Great. Shut up. Let me stitch you up.
Not even stitches, you fucking weenie. Staples. Little wussy staples. No, and then he stitches himself up at the start. This time you can tell he's hamming it up. Here's my medical file. You can see all my coup fights I've been in. That is the... That's the other part I love. Because they drop this one bit of knowledge on us in the emergency room scene, which is so funny, which is, a philosophy degree from NYU. Weird. And I was like... Yeah, weird. Because everyone in the movie keeps talking about, Dalton must be really smart and above it. I'm like, or he's just fucking a failure. Like, this is one of the hard things you have to accept. When you get older in life, you have to accept that Dalton and Wade are abject losers and failures
sure.
in life.
Like, the coolest thing they could muster was being awesome bartender, coolers, bouncers. Like, that's it. It's funny you bring that up because actually when they say, like, studied philosophy at NYU, I'm like, what happened, bro? You fell out of Tisch? What's going on? And, like, that's that, like, bitchy film student in the back of my head. But just, like, yeah.
Doesn't that feel like something he just lied about, though, too, a little bit? Like, do we honestly believe that?
Well, it's like, oh, yeah, I went to NYU of SciAS at Long Island for, of course, philosophy. Oh, okay, cool, sure. Not fooling anyone, asshole.
No, but, like, the first time we see Wade, right? Dalton calls me, he's like, it's getting hard here in this town. Wade is working at the shittiest titty bar you've ever seen. I mean, that titty bar is the size of my living room, just full of weekend passers trying to grab titties. And he's like, save the world from the floor. And he just comes, and you're like, if I'm doing that when I'm 60, like, that's not cool. And don't get me wrong, Sam Elliott, even as Wade Garrett, is so much cooler than us. He will fuck your wife. Yeah, absolutely. He would fuck your mom. Like,
this is
and that
the
would be fleeting.
Thing, and this is the thing about this movie that's amazing is objectively, two guys who travel constantly to become the best bouncers at any bar in town nearby are not cool people ever. I'm sorry. That is not a cool thing to be. You can't be the best guy who stands around and makes sure no one gets their ass kicked inside the bar. But in the context of this movie, I swear to God, I forget every single time while I'm watching this and just go, fuck, dude, I should just be a fucking bartender. That would be so cool. Or I should be a fucking bouncer. I would be so cool.
And that is the power of Patrick Swayze and Sam Elliott is you're like, even as bona fide fucking losers, you watch that movie and you're like, I'd give it all up for 1 week in that shitty unair-conditioned barn.
Like, it's amazing. Like, I should never think, God, dude, I should just be a fucking bouncer. I'd be so cool. I'd be just like Patrick. No. False. Patrick Swayze's a huge fucking loser who can't handle being in one town because he kills people constantly. It's
no, okay. Now this is one of the funnier things about the movie too. Is one of the coolest and funniest things in the movie, and it's actually kind of it never really dawned on me until this viewing, but it's one of those things you're like, how did they get away with this? This movie has so many major absolute crimes. Just massive amounts of very serious, horrible crimes going on. And we don't see a police officer until the very last scene of the movie.
I feel like they get like the call like, we think Brad Wesley might be dead. Cool, great. All right, we'll go copping again. Like, it's the weirdest thing.
No, okay, so Red Shop gets blown up, right? We see some firemen. You cut to the bar right next door. Brad Wesley's essentially in there like, go show your tits while I confess to crimes. And he's like, lapdog, do stick karate with a pool cue. No police law enforcement presence.
Nope.
At all. None, right?
None.
Dalton literally commits his second murder. Just a fucking throat rip. He just goes to work the next morning. Right? And then
like it never happened.
Garrett gets murdered. Everyone in Brad Wesley's like here's a question. How many witnesses do you think there were to Brad Garrett or Brad Wesley having someone drive that monster truck through the car? You're telling me there's not one fucking crazy... I live in small town Midwest in Indiana, right? You're telling me that there's not some fucking, hey, fuck you. That's his fucking small business. Fuck you. Just fucking rich person hating guy who's going to talk to the feds. Are you crazy?
There's so many moments in this movie that I'm just constantly like, there's no one who's going to just like, I got to tell the cops, man. Like, this is like that, like, we've been watching The Sopranos again, and the episode where they're the executive game, and Paulie, like, pretends to, like, stick up the cop, and he's like, hey, man, just so you know, if you guys get loud or there's shots fired, we got to take the call. Otherwise, do whatever you want. They literally drive a monster truck through a fucking car dealership, and no one's like, should we get community service people around? Like, what's going on? Do we need a community watch of some kind? Like, no one says anything.
But this is the thing.
So weird.
It's a tightrope to walk, right? Because in a bar, because I used to be a bouncer at a bar, and we could, like, rough people up, air quotes, because the owner of our bar was friends with the guys on the beat. So they would come in and take our statements and be like, oh, well, this guy, probably a little shady, right, looking back on it, but also you're like, college kids are assholes. They don't really care that much. They're hate dealing with it.
Who cares?
But inside the bar, there is this theory that the movie sets up is that the law of the bar extends past the fucking doorstep of the Double Deuce. It truly does not. Like, Dalton is not a cooler of the real world.
False.
Right?
Another false narrative.
Yeah. You can't be like, I'm the cooler at the Double Deuce, it's fine, and then go down to the village pantry and just start throwing fucking roundhouse kicks. You know what I mean? Because some guy grabbed the last Cheetos. Like, that's not how this works in real life. So they had to do this fun thing where, how can Dalton and Brad Wesley both be power brokers if the cops are constantly interfering? And it's one of those weird things. Every movie of this time period, I feel like what you would have had is 4 of those useless fat bodies, right, that Wesley has on the payroll. 4 of the random big fat white guys with facial hair would have been corrupt cops.
Totally.
Pushing on him, weighing on him, right? That's how you do that. It's funny that they went the other route, because by the time, and this is the thing, they almost pull it off, because as hard as it is to be like, yeah, there's like a lot of carnage and death, I feel like something should have been done. When we see the cops at the end, they literally stroll in after gunfighting's been happening for like an hour. Like, hey, did you see anything? And they're all like, no, I didn't. Nope, not me. Nope. And they just go.
Not at all.
All right. Me. And what we saw is Red literally took the 5 murder weapons, because they all got a shotgun shot on Wesley, which was great. He just walks them to the other room. I don't even know if he has a handkerchief to at least pretend to wipe them down. He definitely has no, like, cleaners of any kind. So he just sets all of the shotguns in a closet to the side, and the cops are like, well, pretty open and shut case here. The coffee table did it. Let's go back to, the bar. And then the blind guy's just playing us out. Dalton dives in and is skinny dipping in the lake next to all the fucking throat-ripped corpses. And it's a happy ending. Like, what?
I mean, that thing is littered like Crystal Lake. Like, it's insane. It's just like...
Well, I like to think the reason they're floating at the surface like that is just like both of their taints are on that fucking dead guy's back. He is their personal pool noodle. Used to fuck guys like me in prison, eh? Now I'm gonna fuck on you!
Oh my god, dude. I know this is like one of the lines from the movie, but I totally forgot that was like something someone said in a movie in 1989.
It's a strange flex.
It's a strange flex. I texted you last night when I was watching it. I'm like, weird flex. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not sure I would want to brag like, I used to fuck guys like you in prison. Like,
this movie has so many amazing lines. My favorite line in the movie by far is Red. Where he gets shaken down or whatever, and Patrick Swayze's like, do you all pay, right, for the betterment of society fund or whatever? And Red just looks up with his mop and he goes, does a hobby horse have a wooden dick? And I was like, yeah! It's one of those awesome, I tell you, the funniest shit I ever heard in my life, I used to work at a car factory, right? It's like a summer job. I would work on this car assembly line.
right.
And there was this fucking weird old geezer, man. He was a weird fucker. I actually stole a bass guitar from him. He loaned me like an Eddie Van Halen, like from the video Jump bass. It's such a weird thing. And I quit my job, so I never found him again. I guess I didn't steal it. I just had it in my house. But to this day, I'm like, that guy's probably out there hunting me right now. Weirdest fucking guy. But he used to have he would say the weirdest shit, right? And these country people have these sayings. But the weirdest one he ever told me, right, was one day, I can't remember what it was, but like, I had a CD or something, and he saw like a pic. Let's just imagine it for the time period. It was like Britney Spears, right? And he just goes, woo! Yeah, what's up? And he goes, I'd eat a mile of her shit just to see where it come from. And I was like, wait, what? This was like, he said it like it was so, I'd eat a mile of her shit to see where it come from. I'm like, are you saying you just want to see her butt or like her poop, or you like to eat? Like, whatever, that's funny. And I loved it but like these old timers have these great sayings. They're like, to nail that one. Yeah. I mean, pain don't hurt is the line we all remember. Right. But does a hobby horse have a wooden dick? That's
an all timer right there. I mean, that's
it's so good. I even like the old timey farmer who gets the vapors when he watches Dalton do karate. Yeah, he has some great lines too. So good.
I personally just love anytime that he's in the barn working out. It's always so just like It's like it's the scene that should have been what that Kevin Bacon thing in Footloose was when he was in the flour mill dancing by himself, but he's just like fucking
The
going
old
to town
abandoned
on
railroad graveyard. We're cutting it loose. Fit this.
He's just every time, and then anytime he's like working out, every time he's in there, someone comes in to like give him some fucking speech. Like the big one obviously is like Wade, when Wade shows up, he goes,
when he swings on Wade, that is like a truly more emotional than it should be moment for me.
oh totally,
like, no,
it's so weird.
no. Yeah, actually my friend Joe Collins, I'm not sure if he listens, one of my good buddies, we bounced together, and he used to always be like, I'm Wade and you're Delton. I was like the young gun bouncer. Because the guy who owned the bars we worked at, he used to rent party buses every summer. So we'd go down in this massive bus. We'd clear out all this shit from his own bar, right? Like kegs and margarita mix. And he'd get a party bus for us to go to Jimmy Buffett concert every summer. So all the bouncers, we were all dressed up in like Hawaiian shit and like overalls to go to a Jimmy Buffett concert. And I'll never remember, the first time I went, we watched Roadhouse like 4 times on the bus right there and back. And I'll never forget, because we're down there, and we come out, and there's just, like, this 65-year-old lady who flashes us her titties, and we're like, wow, this Jimmy Buffett shit's for real. Like, this is a hardcore party. We gotta get ready. There's brawls everywhere, believe it or not, just fights. We go into the bathroom. I turn around. I'm, like, pissed, and I'm washing my hands. I turn around, and he smashes this dude's face off a urinal. And I was like, oh, God, he's big. He's built like Donkey Kong. Just a big fucking guy, right? We go outside, and he's just, like, giant. He's in overalls with no shirt on underneath, like Jesus saying, he's like the most recognizable. Next thing you know, we're surrounded by like 10 security guards and Verizon Wire. It was Deer Creek or Verizon Wire, whatever it is now, corporate like place, right? And I shit you not, this is how much we had watched Roadhouse, and like he looked at me and he's like, I'll take that half. And I was like, there's like 12 dudes. I was like, fuck you. I literally just threw my hands up. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I totally betrayed him. I was like, I'm not. And we got thrown out. But I was like, he literally was like, I'll take that half. And I was like, we got to stop watching Roadhouse, man. This is bad for our health.
Wow.
It was so bad.
See, that there are a lot of life lessons, but you have to use them correctly. And that's the real important thing about Roadhouse, is learning those life lessons and understanding where they apply in real life.
Well, Dalton lays out the life lesson, right? He says the best line in the movie as far as like theme or lesson, which is, no one wins a fight.
Yep.
And I was like, that's true, man. Like, if you've ever been in, like, when I was a bouncer, it's like, it was such a hassle. You were like, oh, cool. And then you're like, no, this sucks. It's horrible. I'm at the age of my life, I'm like, if someone in my family's life is not on the line, like 0% chance I'm fighting anyone. You know, it's horrible, right? And like, this movie does get into that. Like, real fighting is brutal. Like, I guess Dalton's 4th rule is, once you start fighting, cripple people's knees, right? Because they're bigger than you. Cripple people's
knees, and if they don't stop after that, rip their throats out.
Fucking throat rip, right? But that line in the movie is, no one wins a fight, is really apt. Think about, by the end of this movie, how many people are dead. And then you've got the bar owner of the Double Deuce. Now he's wearing leather jackets and murdering people.
Oh, yeah.
We've just created 5 new Wesleys. They have like a new redneck cartel.
I mean, the real problem is Dalton, in a way, creates the problem of the creates the like second problem of the Double Deuce, which is emboldening these assholes to just continue being assholes. It's not good.
Well, once they've killed Wesley, we know the cops are literally useless, right? Like, what happens the next time some guy's like, hey, I'm the Sears exec that was coming here because Brad Wesley. We're still setting up Sears, and he's like, I don't fucking think so. I sell washing machines. Right? And then Dalton's going over there to do some fucking Roebuck throat rips. Like, this is out of control. I think this town is actually an all the way gets purged off the face of the earth town when Dalton leaves.
Oh, yeah,
like, Dalton gets a little dead body whap in the creek at the end there, the pond, right?
Right.
The moment that scene ends, the new nightmarish fucking Silent Hill version of this town takes.
Absolutely.
100%. It's so bad. And that's the thing, Dalton, because Dalton's like the Zen master, right? Right. And then because he gets some puss, he gets a little puss. Now he's all hot-blooded, he's ready, he's back because he got a little puss. And he's getting too much, right? Like, I love the scene in the barn you're talking about where he's punching that fucking stick dummy and he's climbing up the rope.
Yep.
And then he tries to punch Wade because he's all the way in now. He's emotionally attached to Red's tire barn. Like, you're gonna fucking punch Wade in the face over a fucking tire depot?
Come on, sir.
He's all the way. Because Wade, this is the funny thing about the movie, though, is you feel like Wade's the asshole. He's like, oh, you're fucked now, mijo. He's like, we gotta get down the road. We gotta drive out of here. Right? Let's just be gone. And you're like, oh, what a loser.
Wade is the voice of reason, man.
Well, by the end of the movie, you're like, I think every single person in town's life would probably be better had Dalton just driven. Yeah, they still have to pay 10% a month to, like,
Dalton
the better.
had left town after, like, making sure the bar had a fresh coat of paint, probably would have been fine. Probably would have said, listen, you giant fat guy, you're in charge because you have my haircut now. I'm getting out of here. And poof, like the dust.
Here's my tight karate jeans. Here's my fucking rope to climb. You won't need that, but hold on to it just in case. Goals. I'll see you later. No, I'd like to see a sequel where Keith David takes the mantle and he's the ass whipper of the town. But no, we got to talk about the infamous throat rip too, because one of the things the movie asks us to overlook and forget is that Dalton is just a hardcore serial killer. Yes. He kills at least 5 people on screen. Right? No, 4 people on screen. You could assume everyone at Wesley's compound, we see them knocked out, they could all be dead.
I assume anyone who's not speaking to camera and facing down is dead for sure.
Yeah, that's
like
what I
when
assume
Wesley
too.
happens upon those guys, they're dead.
Yeah, and Wesley, of course, he for some reason he decides not to throat rip Wesley. He's like, this is my line. 20 bodies is too much for me. He's like, I killed everyone else, but not Wesley.
Weird line to draw after you already did it once.
Yeah, and he doesn't know that the fucking hillbilly firing squad is there, but they handle that shit. Yeah. But what I love, though, there was a thing I noticed this time when he fights the guy who loved men like him in prison. When he knocks him off the bike, they have a fight, right? And they're going for it. There's a beat in the middle of the fight where that guy's down, necklace bro, denim vest and necklace bro, right?
Yeah. He's
down on his knees, and Dalton grabs him by the top of the hair. And you can see the way they staged it. Dalton's going for the throat rip. And he freezes. And I was like, oh my God, because Dalton's a fucking psychopath that knows he needs him to draw that gun first. And you might say, but Griff, he didn't draw the gun till the end of the fight. How did he know? You know what I know from the movie? The exact evidence of the movie is that Dalton spotted a boot blade from fucking 40 feet away in a hazy smoke. I don't know if people who listen to this are going to be old enough to remember smoking in bars. I used to work at a bar where you could smoke in. It was an absolute different atmosphere. You've never been in a place like that with that much smoke. You can't see that well. It's horrible. So for him to spot that boot blade, Dalton immediately sized up, this guy's got a gun and I'm going to get to murder him. Right? Because Dalton could have just beat his ass and called the cops.
I like the way his phrase, I'm going to get to murder him.
Yeah, Dalton, I mean, he has those little fucking karate sweaties on. He probably has a little chubby in there. He's like, oh, I'm going to get to rip this fucking necklace-wearing dude's throat out.
Right.
But, so he's going for the throat rip if you watch. Freezes. The fight continues. And then, and only the second he pulls the gun, then he's like, oh, thank God. And just immediately murders him.
It's very much a sexual release of some kind.
It's an absolute fucking murder, right? And the scene I love about, because this is a premeditated murder. This is 100%. The moment he hears that motorcycle, he's like, oh, thank God, I get to murder someone. Right? He so plans this. And the fact that he went for the throat rip and stopped, this is premeditation. Dalton is a fucking serial killer. We see him go Jason Voorhees on Wesley Manor, right? Whether we think that he should have or not. He's a fucking all-the-way serial killer. The thing I love, though, is that, is it Kelly Preston is the actress? Who's the actress?
It's Kelly Lynch.
Kelly Lynch, yeah. So she runs up, sees the body, and is just like, oh, God, I'm throwing it all the way for a fucking ashtray man bouncer who fucking throat rips. Gross. Leaves. And then the very next scene is like, I'm just kidding, I'm back. Let's skinny dip. I'll save you from Wesley's man.
That's like survivor's guilt. Like, she's like there because she's like, oh my God, I feel terrible about what happened.
This shit, that is so fucking wild. Walk me through Garrett, man. Wade Garrett. How do you get two just fucking pillar icon of manliness just when you think Dalton couldn't be cooler?
I mean,
Wade is literally cooler.
If you didn't think it was possible, there is someone actually cooler than Dalton in this movie, and it's his mentor of some kind. Although they seem, he's obviously older, but
he's the guy who showed him the ropes, broke him in.
Right, he showed him the ropes about bouncing, which means that he's a much bigger loser than Dalton. But
he just didn't have all that fancy NYU book learning.
He just didn't have he read Kierkegaard and Plato on his own time rather than go to college for it.
I read and didn't understand on my own time, thank you. I waited for the podcast version.
Yeah, like, he's just so cool and chill, and ultimately, you kind of want to be, honestly, like, you kind of sit there and you're like, God damn, do I want to be Wade?
No, let me answer that for you. Wade.
Yes.
Wade, because not only is Wade just cooler, right? But Dalton knows he's cooler, right? Dalton even says Wade Garrett's the best. So even Dalton, who we know thinks he's the best man in every room, knows that Wade's better. But when Wade is just smooth pimping, and he takes her dancing, right? And there's that great bit where he's like, "Is this the part where you tell me?"
That's the fucking line that I love.
Yeah, he's like, "Is this where you tell me your friend's such a nice guy?" He's like, "No, this is where I tell you I want you for myself."
Yeah.
And it's great because Dalton's over there like half asleep, that dope, and he's like, whatever he says is a lie. He just dips her down, smooth as shit, and goes, "Don't bet on it." And I was like, this guy's the coolest. Not that it's super cool to fuck your buddy's girlfriend. But
yeah, it's super not cool, but like that scene alone makes him so much cooler than Dalton just because he literally, like, I love the, like, laying it all out there for him. Like, listen, this is how I am. This is what I'm going to tell you.
Well, it's weird, too, because if I'm not mistaken, we don't see Dalton take a drink until Wade shows up. And then Wade shows up, and he's, like, sleepy, having a couple beers. And then every scene after that, he's like, let's have a beer. Because he's trying to be like Wade. Because coffee is not the coolest thing to order in a bar.
No.
Booze. Manly booze is. Because Wade is cooler. Wade is cooler.
Wade can handle his booze because Wade's probably has a problem anyways. So,
no. Okay, again, this is one of those things you see from afar, right? Like, I think Bukowski led an interesting and cool life. I also think he was a loser and do not want to be Bukowski, right?
Exactly.
He was a lonely, miserable alcoholic, but he, also, I think there is something to admire sometimes in people who can, like, turn that kind of sadness and pain into something cool.
I agree. I think it's something
Wade
to
Garrett's
admire, which is
palette,
what makes Wade Garrett so awesome.
No, Wade Garrett's palette is the fucking walls of the titty bar. He fucking just decorates with blood and schmegma from all these fucking losers. Bam, 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 bam.
I wanted to. I did a lot of. I wanted to read, like, some of the trivia in this movie is amazing. But
hit me. I love trivia.
I wanted to tell you this one. There are two movies that Swayze was offered after Roadhouse.
Okay.
He could not take either of them because he had a knee injury. He was offered,
which I think he got on the set of Dirty Dancing from all the fucking jumps.
It started on Dirty Dancing, and then he got re-injured at the end of Roadhouse. He was offered the role of Cash in Tango and Cash.
Okay. Which went to Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell, right?
I think that's Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
And then he was also offered Mike Harrigan in Predator 2.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, what a different movie that would have been.
And instead he took Ghost because he didn't want to blow his knee up again.
And Ghost just annihilates both of those in the box office, I'm sure.
And Ghost it literally was the right call because it made a bunch of money and he didn't have to do anything. He just had to do Ghost pottery to me more.
Yeah, how funny that Patrick Swayze left the set of Roadhouse as an actual Wade Garrett with the knee issue. How funny is that? You're like, yeah, I want to be those two Manly movies. No, you're in the pottery movie.
Coolest guy ever. Also, Kelly Lynch was originally Annette Bening.
Really?
Rumor has it that her and Swayze had no chemistry, so they recast after like a week.
I would put that in the least shocking news tab of all.
Yeah, I'm not sure sure I'm here for the Annette Bening as the doc.
Well, also he probably just came off of Dirty Dancing where he already had no chemistry with Jennifer Grey. Right. He didn't like her at all, apparently. They didn't get along, so he's probably like, I'm not doing this shit again.
Also, I don't know if anybody likes this, but I do have one tagline that I found from this movie that is probably one of my. It's trying to capitalize on the Swayze-ness of the whole thing, which is the dancing's over. Now it gets dirty. I don't.
Oh, come on! I love the guys. We really need you to buy in that this guy's not a poos. We really need you to believe that Brad Wesley doesn't put Dalton in the corner.
The whole thing is literally like, hey, did you see Dirty Dancing? Ladies, you'll love it. Guys, do you like dirty things? You'll love this. That's all it is. Bless that marketing team.
I mean, it's a good line, though. It's a good line.
It's all right.
Is it as good as a polar bear fell on me after doing an Abbott and Costello?
Absolutely nothing is better than that.
The fact that he did the Abbott and Costello Dom DeLuise gasp, I was like, this is a rotund, gerbil-looking man who's like, this is my shot, Mom's spaghetti. And he went for it. He absolutely got every ounce of it he could. I admire him to no end. Yes. I love it.
There was no scenery left after he chewed it. It was wonderful. Mad respect.
Oh, so fucking good. All right, is there anything else on this this fucking beef slab that we brought to Thanksgiving?
I don't.
What else
so,
about Roadhouse? Or do you just want to sing its praises one more time?
I mean, it's the prototype for what I think. It's interesting because you look at it now and you look at what we're like. Look at action movies now, and we had like the Expendables, which was like this ultimate blowout. But really, the major action movies are not about, like, short of The Rock. Yeah. They're not really big muscle-bound dudes. Like, it's basically the Fast and Furious movies and John Wick. And John Wick is, shooting guns and doing, like, hand-to-hand combat stuff. He's not, like, super hulked out or anything. I think Roadhouse might be the predecessor for the late 2000s, late 20 teens. Is that how you say it? Late 20 teens action trends, perhaps.
It's a movie that, I was telling you, one of the funny things is, like, if you study screenwriting, and we've all read the books, and they're like, don't write movies like this. You don't want your dialogue to sound like a movie character. Like, every line in this movie sounds like overly dramatic movie dialogue, right? Don't make the stakes too, like, this is an absolutely unbelievable. It's bad business for Brad Wesley to be like, I want 10% of the worst bar in town. When we see the Double Deuce with the line out the door, Brad Wesley just taking 10% of that is better business. But he's like, no, I'll murder for it because I want to finger the nurse. And like, he's losing his mind trying to fucking Dr. Moreau this town, right? Yes. And it's just awesome. But this is what I mean. Patrick Swayze, and then you pair him with Sam Elliott. They exude this. They're almost become this fucking mythic relic, right? You're like, we want to reach through the screen. We want to steal the secret of fire and flight. All the things from the gods that we can't have. They're just these fucking pillars of masculinity, kind of playing against the tropes of an 80s action movie as we've come to know it. Because like I said, they're 70s cool, right? McQueen and Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman, right? Like those definitely, kind of 70s
cool for sure.
Yeah, because there was some point where we decided that masculinity was, I can just shoot big guns and have giant muscles. And this is just a throwback to a different time. So you take the fun, big silliness of an 80s action movie and you add that 70s cool guy, right?
Right.
And it's like he's jumping around like a ballerina. The fighting is questionable at best, but then you get a throat rip and you're like, yeah, like I believe Patrick Swayze could beat everyone up.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you, if I had a weird takeaway of this movie, not to get too weird, and I'm sure if there's any psychology students studying this, they're like, oh, Griff's got a problem. Have you noticed that when you watch movies from this era, like, so Brad Wesley's jazzercising girlfriend, right? When he sends her up to strip on the stage.
Right.
I was like, is it weird that women like her, right? She's a verifiably attractive woman. I guess she checks all the boxes.
Sure.
Would be attractive in any era. When I watch her on that stage, she just looks like my aunt. Not like specifically my aunt, but women from these 80s action movies with like those hairs and weird underwear and weird dresses, they just look like, I remember my mom getting together with her friends to have like pre-bottled Bahama Mamas like after a day at State Farm with like giant hair and shoulder pads, and you're like, they all look like that to me. Like the women of this era aren't, like, they can't be attractive to me because I'm just imagining, like, coworkers of my mother. Like, they're somehow trapped in an era where, like, young boy Josh Griffey's like, no! I see the woman who steals the cowboy hat is like an authority figure.
For Roadhouse. Thank you, everyone. What a one.
All right, I mean, break that down as you will, but they look old. They look old, even as they're at their peak desirable. It's weird. I don't know. I see her. I can't.
Look, man. Whatever revs your engine, whatever plays your blues, do your thing, man.
80s beautiful women that look very 80s to me. They look like my mom's State Farm coworkers. I can't be tempted by that fruit. They look eternally old to me, right? Like they're like a weird reverse Dorian Gray.
It is a relic. I mean, high-waisted underpants, big hair. Yeah, it's a relic.
In their attic, their Dorian Gray picture is just like shoulder pads and hairspray. It's fine. It's weird to me. It was like a weird thing. I'm like, I can't enjoy this part of the movie.
Baby Jane. Yeah, for sure.
Like I won't. This part's not for me. I'll be over there doing karate kegels with Swayze. Neither here nor there. That's the end of Roadhouse. That's the end of The Pod Brings the Beef month. Next month, we stuff your stockings, guys. That's all listener selections. We have a handful that have guaranteed made the cut because the movies are so awesome. You still have time. Find us on any social media platform you have. We're there. Give us your pick. If you want to email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. Give us your pick there. I swear to you, you can still get your movie on our list for December. We're doing 7 to 9. We've been working it out. We're doing a lot of work. So there's still a chance. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Film Alchemist on YouTube for a lot of fun new stuff we're working on. Please take a second and leave a rating and review here, whatever app you're listening to this now, especially if that's Apple Podcast app. We thank you very much. Special note, we have one or two more shows this month that we're bringing on a very special guest. So you'll be hearing from him later this week. We won't divulge yet, just to make sure everything's in place. But stay tuned. Lots of fun stuff. Get in your stocking stuffers. Thanks for sharing the beef with us, guys.
And Griffey's fantasies about his mom's State Farm employees.
No, I said not fantasies. The opposite of fantasies. Whatever WAP is, the inward version of that.
Listen, it's fine, man. Don't worry about it.
It's like WAP, but if all the moisture was coming from my tear ducts.
Please stop.
Ew, gross.